No, Danny, apparently he's refusing to go on Discord for some reason. And Ahmed's refusing to go on TikTok, so it's very difficult to make this work right now.
Because I have slides to present. So we did StreamYard at the first place. He said no. Then he said, then we said, okay, his Google account is not working. He has a Discord account. Join the Discord server. No, this will give a promo to Jay's Discord, Orthodoxia. But
Everybody is saying
I have to present here.
everyone is saying come to TikTok, bro. I'm just being honest.
I have slides to present.
Would you be able to present them on your phone and then like show your computer screen? Like you did with a couple others in the past? I'm just letting you know what people are saying, bro. There's 40 people in chat right now, and they're all spamming. Please come to on TikTok. So that's all. I'm just saying that. It's up to you if you want to continue. I mean, like you've already kind of gotten it where it is right now, but it's up to you whether you want to continue.
That means I have to host then because I have to share my screen.
You can share your screen either way.
No, if I do this, you won't see. Okay, for example. No, it has to be Discord. Discord StreamYard. He said no StreamYard. Okay, we did Discord.
Not pronounced anathema, Virum. I don't really remember why you got banned, so just DM me and maybe we can talk about it. He says TikTok is what I said. I have screenshots. That's what he said himself. I don't know if that's true or not, but yeah.
No, he didn't say it would be on TikTok. He asked, "Is it on TikTok and how long? What's the structure?"
And then what did you say?
Never said it has to be on TikTok. And I sent him the structure, same thing I sent you. Then I said Jay is gonna host instead. He's an Eastern Orthodox.
Yeah. Yes, I wasn't aware of anything like this. I was told that this was going to be something on StreamYard.
No, you're right. No, there's nothing wrong with you.
That was what I was
You're
told
doing
by
StreamYard.
Ahmed. What?
Yeah, there's no problem. We were doing StreamYard, which is where you're supposed to do the debates, right? Because you don't have an audience directly. You can have people to request up. Like TikTok was more professional and more linear. And he downgraded. He said that, oh, my Google account was not working. I do not know.
Changing whether or not Danny hosts doesn't change anything. I don't understand why you guys are saying it like that, because he wants it to go to TikTok anyway. So it doesn't fix that either way. He keeps saying come to TikTok, and people are spamming that. If you come over here, you can just join the panel or whatever. And then if you want, I could be your little slide boy. How about that?
Yeah, let's do that.
You do that? All right. Let's do that.
Yeah, let's do that.
All right.
Hello?
Yep, hold on. Here, let me disconnect from this. Come on, my life. I'll be the little slide boy, guys. Don't worry. Give me a second. I can't change scenes during multi-guest. I have to kick you out. Hold on. Okay, there we go. Let me go ahead and do it that way. So I guess we're doing this on TikTok anyway. Sorry, hold on. Thing is shut. Boom. And then we're gonna move the chat elsewhere for the recording. Stuff is being very strange. All right. Let me go ahead. Zero, come back up here, please. Thank you. Oh, too big. All right. Sorry, I have to change things because I didn't know we were doing this on TikTok. So.
Zero, why come on Discord?
Yeah, because I agreed to TikTok.
No,
That's
wait,
literally
what's
in
the
the
Discord?
screenshot.
You didn't agree to Discord. No, show me the screenshot.
Okay, when did we even bring up Discord?
Wait, no, you didn't bring up Discord. You said you screenshot it. Show me.
Exactly. I didn't bring up Discord. I brought up TikTok.
Yeah,
You're
you
proving
no.
my point.
Wait, no. I'm saying, show me the screenshot. We said you're gonna do TikTok.
Yeah, I said, is it on TikTok and how long?
Yeah,
What's the
where did
structure?
you say that it will be on TikTok? You asked me a
Yeah,
question. Is it on
obviously
TikTok?
you never. Hold on. Obviously you never answered that question.
Is it on who? What makes it a
Yes,
conflict?
I'm asking. Okay, just to be clear, right? When I asked you, is it on TikTok?
Look, guys.
I'm looking for a
guys.
response.
Is it on TikTok and how
If
long?
you would have
was the
said
structure?
no,
right,
okay,
let's-
we're on
1 minute
TikTok now. We can just start the
introduction.
All
debate.
right, guys,
We can just
guys,
start
guys,
the debate. I'm not even-
guys, stop. All right, we got like 100 people in here, bro. Let's just stop at the meta. All right. Let's just make it happen. We're here now. It's all good. Ahmed, send me your slides. I will be your little slide boy for this debate.
Appreciate it. Let me know if you have access. I'm not sure if I'm private or not.
Yeah. Alrighty.
But when you,
Hold on, before we start, Bryce, do you say that like the cross examinations after like the 1AC and then after the 1NT, or is like the rebuttal is going to be afterwards?
How
Because
does
generally
it-
the rebuttals are after. What? The rebuttals always go like after the CX.
It says.
No, it doesn't.
This is what I got. This is what I got
Traditionally in
from.
policy debate and
No, I
Lincoln
sent
Texas
you the structure. Why are you running that? And now everything's going to go your way. Well, listen,
I'm not
we
running
got
for
from
anybody. You
StreamYard
never-
to Discord
All right.
to TikTok
all right,
just for you.
All right. All right.
Dude, okay, just to be clear,
All
right?
right. Both of y'all stop. All right. So this is what we're gonna do because this is the only thing that I was actually told, and Ahmed was the only one that stayed in contact with me for any of this. So I'm going to go with what is currently what he has sent me. 1 minute introduction, not an argument, but who you are and what you are able to debate pretty much. 18-minute opening to argue each point. 10-minute refutations, 20-minute cross-examinations, 5-minute ending statements. That's what we're going to do. Nothing wrong with that statement, right? That seems pretty casual.
Sure, I can agree with that.
All right, dope. So we're going to do it that way.
Wait, 15 or 18? How long?
It says
is
18.
15 or
18-minute opening.
Dude, okay, we agreed to 15, but okay.
You don't want more time.
Dude, that's like insane, bro. But okay, go ahead.
3 minutes more. 3 minutes more. Good job.
All right, just go ahead.
right.
Go ahead and start.
Okay.
Hey, I sent a request. Give me access.
I got you.
I'll display it. "18 minutes, sheesh, let me sit." Yeah. Facts, bro. All right, I got it.
Got it? Okay.
Yeah. All right,
Yeah,
so just say next slide when you need me to go to the next one. All right.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
Let me go ahead and make my camera not on top of your slideshow. There you go.
Can you zoom it out? Like from fit to wide. Fit to wide.
Bit to wide.
Yeah, because I use entire screen on mode. You can just do it like that, honestly, but zoom in a little bit.
Is that fine?
Yeah, that could be fine.
Hold on, I thought introductions were first.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Introduction.
introduction.
Introductions. Yeah.
Relax, Zero, relax.
Oh my
We're just
gosh,
getting it
bro.
started.
All right. So first off, just want to preface this real quick. That we've lined out what we're gonna do. All right, we're gonna do it that way. First off, we're gonna start with Ahmed Qureshi. He's gonna go ahead and introduce himself for a minute, and then Zero, you're gonna introduce yourself, and then we're gonna start with everything else that we are gonna do. Cool.
Yeah.
Epic. So let's go ahead and get that started. You are. Let me make sure I got some timers in here. All right, you got 1 minute. That's set up. All right, Ahmed, go ahead. We are beginning.
Okay. All right. 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you guys coming in today for the debates if the Trinity is 3 gods, right? We're going to be attacking the Thomistic Trinitarian model, right? Little about me, I'm an ex-Baptist, alhamdulillah, Muslim. I'm going to be attacking the position that Zero holds on to. And it sounds weird why I'm going first. It's because that Zero doesn't know if he should hold on to relative identity or not. So I was like, all right, I'll present first, and then you can choose like what identity you want to hold on to. You want to see my argument first, no problem. But it's pain in the ass to get him on here. He couldn't really get on Discord or StreamYard because he didn't want to show his face. No problem. He want gifts. But yeah, this is gonna be an introduction. We're gonna have good debates. I'm gonna attack any sophistry that's gonna be used. We cannot be ambiguous. You have to be univocal what we're saying. Okay, we have to be explained to the audience what terms we're gonna use, and if there's gonna be someone at something I'm asking you, you have to answer directly. You cannot just, if I'm giving you a dichotomy, you have to answer it straight yes or no.
All right, time.
That's totally respect.
All right,
Yeah,
Zero,
I'm
you're
gonna
welcome to go.
start. Okay. Yeah, I'm Zero on TikTok and also on Discord. I have a background in LD and policy debate on the TFA and NSDA circuit. I became Catholic in July 2024. I've been studying Catholic theology for almost 2 years now, and I'm thankful for the host and my Christian brothers for the helpful words of encouragement.
All righty. Now I think we're going to go ahead and move on to the next section here. Let me go ahead and pull this over to the side so I don't have to keep pulling that up in front of you guys. Go ahead and set this up here for 18-minute opening. Alrighty. I'm gonna put this up here. You'll be able to see it, all right?
Yeah, that's fine. No problem.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, today we're going to be attacking to Mr. Trinity. Next slide. So first, we're going to define what God means and what does one mean, right? So the term one means arithmetical indivisibility, and the sword tool we're going to identify is that which possesses divine attributes or that which is necessary. Okay, and sword tools are the objective criteria of identity and how we count things. Next slide. So
your stuff is freaking. All right, we're doing it like this because there we go.
Okay, yeah. So we're going to have 4 definitions. I'm going to give an exhaustive instantiation of what the word person could possibly mean. So there's no ambiguity and he cannot run away. So the first definition that's very common that Thomas Aquinas, Albert Magnus use is from Boethius and Contra Judicia et Nestorius. He says a person is an individual substance of a rational nature. Then we have Riccardi in De Trinitate. He says a person is an incommensurable existence of intellectual nature. The third definition, also by the same place by Riccardi, he says a person is existing by itself only according to a certain mode of rational existence. The fourth and final definition we have for magisterial, according to Latin tradition, is a person is a distinct hypostasis with an incommensurable property pertaining to dignity. Okay. Now, next slide. So we have Albert Magnus, who is the teacher of St. Thomas Aquinas. He gives an articulation on Boethius' notion. And the thing is, he divides Boethius' notion of individual substance and rational nature in 2 parts. The former, he says, is a nominative case because it expresses a thing of nature, while the nature itself, the latter, expresses an oblique case, right? And he says at the end, it's more fitting to say of rational nature than rational nature. This comes from Summa Theologica, Albert Magnus. Next slide. So now Albert Magnus, he's going to be setting the medium between Boethius and Riccardi, and declares that a person is incommunicable, meaning it excludes any type of communicability between both act and potentiality. Okay, next slide. So right here we have the technical case for expression of individual substance of rational nature from Boethius, right? So the former, like I said, is going to be a nominative case, right? It's going to speak in that which is of nature, but the rational nature itself is genitive case. And this is very important. I want you to hold this onto your head because this will tell us what type of identity we have to hold on to regarding ADS. Next slide. So Albert Magnus says that when X is of F in genitive case, it's going to be intransitive. And both the former and latter terminus are the same thing when it comes to genitive cases of both terminuses. In contrast with the Latin case of ablative case, X and Y are going to be different. So he gives an example. Knife of iron. Knife is relatively identical to iron, but iron is not identical to knife. They're relatively identical. And he signifies an ablative case. It signifies a material cause. But the creature of salt is going to be the same thing. The former and the latter words from mine is going to be the same thing. He calls it a genitive case. And he signifies intention and attribution. But here's the thing. We have 2 problems so far. Next slide. We have 2 problems so far. The first argument we have is individuation of acts in Trinity. And I divide this 2 parts. The first part is personal incommunicability, and the next part is communicatio idiomatum, the communication of idioms. The second argument is going to be individuation of rationality, which I do not divide it, but keep it as one indivisible parts, is going to be personal incompatibility with proper intention. Okay, next slide. So this is going to be my argument with the individuation of acts, okay? And this is the first part. So Leo blind 1, komunikasi melatum. Next slide. So according to Thomas Aquinas on the power of God, question 3, article 7, the efficient cause causes something to become real through its action, okay? Next slide. So for X and Y to be the same agent, they must share the same principle of act, right? The former shows unity of operation, which still can be divisible. However, the latter on the right shows an incommensurable relationship, and that X efficient cause is not predicated to Y, which shows that there's a distinct agency, okay? Next slide. So I know you're not familiar with komunikasi betum because you haven't read patristics yet. I know, but I'm gonna teach you what it is, right? Komunikasi betum is gonna be the communication of idioms. We're in the incarnation. The energy of the logos to predicate subsistence self, such as God suffered, God was crucified, to represent communion of the idioms, not essential attributes, but idioms, and predicated between the natures one agent. Next slide. And this is the argument. I'll give you a formal equation if you wanted to, but the Father does not exemplify the acts that Son does, and between them exists a distinction of principle of motion. Therefore, the equation, next slide, I detail it, that you have incommunicability of the Father and Son, and the Son exemplifies an action in his theandric operations that the Father does not exemplify in his operations, right? Because we're a distinct agency. But yet the Son still exemplifies the action, right? And for all of X that exemplifies an act, X is an agent, right? And the Son's act and the Father's act are not indiscernible, which means this entails that the Son and the Father are distinct agents, not identical, because the paternal subsistence and the filiate subsistence are distinct agents. Therefore, two divine causes of subsistence means you have two distinct gods. Next slide. So we have the second part of individuation acts, and it's going to be personal incommunicability, okay? Next slide. According to St. Thomas Aquinas, Summa Theologia, part 1, question 4, article 2. According to St. Thomas Aquinas, Summa Theologia, part 1, question 6, article 2. According to St. Thomas Aquinas, Summa Theologia, part 1, question 13, article 5. According to St. Thomas Aquinas, Summa Theologia, part 1 of the 2nd, question 60, article 1. According to St. Thomas Aquinas in Summa Contra Gentiles, book 2, chapter 88. According to St. Thomas Aquinas in Summa Contra Gentiles, book 3, chapter 22, 24, and 65. According to St. Thomas Aquinas, De Potentia Dei, question 7, article 7, he divides agency into two parts. The form is going to be equivocal agency. The latter is going to be univocal agency. Okay? Next slide. According to St. Thomas Aquinas, Summa Theologia, part 1, question 29, article 34, he expresses what incommunicability is. He defines what incommunicability is, and he divides into three parts. Next. So he divides incommunicability in three parts. The incommunicability of assumption, the incommunicability of particulars, and the incommunicability of universals. Next slide. But the issue is, if the Father's subsistence and so is the Son, while they're both causally efficient, there exists a set of qualities of the Father, Son, however they remain incommunicable. The following is concluded: each subsistent must obtain its own extramental relative reality per se. Each subsistent must obtain extramental causal efficiency per se, and each subsistence must be predicated divine per se, and not extrinsically shared. Next slide. Now we have the individuation of rationality. I'm combining both parts together. Next slide. So if X and Y are two individual substances of rational nature with the use of case of genitive and ablative, then rationality is a description of subsistent and is per se within the relative reality. However, because of rationality being per se, with rationality is the abstraction of the ability to judge universal truths, and there is a difference between X and Y. There are two minds, and this follows predicamental order. And the reason is because you're going to be distinct minds, because rationality is in each person per se, not extrinsically shared. Because Saint Victor, which is going to be Ricardi and Dirtendit, he rejects communicability between each individual substance, rational nature. And this rejects communion of rationality, is rejected due to incommunicability. Next slide. So I'm going to refuting the potential rebuttals of the first two arguments. Next slide. But rationality is shared within the essence, and the persons possess the essence. Next slide. As Saint Albert Magnus stated on his articulation of his critique of the definition of person by Boethius and Ricardi, the person possesses rationality generatively, not ablatively, while also maintaining uncommutability. It refutes this and shows that each relative subsistence are imminently rational, and they're not identical to one another. Next slide. The Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, they differ from relations, and their acts are one ad extra, but three acts ad intra, because there's one act ad extra, then you have one God. Next slide. This is heresy, because that which is an agent is just based on its extramental reality of its principle of motion, of its act. If the Father, Son, Holy Spirit are three agents instrumentally, but one agent has unit of extramentally of ad extra, then you fall into modalism, as the existence of the distinction between the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit is conceptual and not extramental. This is where you're entailing, if you see this. For an agent is a relative subsistence, according to Aristotle, and Aquinas says that each person is a relative subsistence, while the essence is an absolute subsistence. Next slide, and I'm going to prove it right here. So the Fourth Lateran Council, Abba Joachim, he tries to refute Peter Lombard, but the Fourth Lateran Council, Vatican, they stand with Peter Lombard when he says there's one supreme reality in the Trinity. This is from the Second Constitution. Next slide. But Aquinas quotes Augustine when he says there are three realities in the Trinity in disputed questions. So is the Trinity one reality or three realities? Next slide. And Thomas Aquinas tries to reconcile this. So he divides reality into two, right? The form being relative, which concludes three. The latter being absolute, which concludes one, right? Next slide, and we define what relative is, right? So relative is going to be something. Next slide. Yeah. Okay. So relative within the scholastic lexicon refers something a liquid, that which refers something, the being of relation that forms relation to something having representing. And this forms a predicamental relation of 10 categories of Aristotle, right? If one relationship to something perishes, so does the other corresponding to it. In Summa Theologica, part 3, question 35, and article 5. Next slide. And regarding absolute is synonymous with abstractus and separatus, not taking any relation to something unrelated, unconditional, simple, plain. It refers to quiddity. Next slide. Arguments 3, paternity versus father. This is my unrefuted argument I have made. Sanchez, Joshi, nobody could ever refute this. Alhamdulillah, I made 5 Thomists, one of their biggest Thomists, have shubuhat. Next slide. So it's going to be, by the way, it's going to be regarding ADS relations versus notional acts. But now, the father versus paternity. According to Thomas Aquinas, the father and paternity are indiscernible in reality and only differ in their mode of signification. Next slide. But according to Thomas Aquinas, the father begat the son, but paternity did not. What? So how are they the same? Let's see what. Next slide. If paternity is the father in extramental reality, but is only distinct logically by mode of signification, then the only following cases would happen. Case 1, the begetting of the son was not real, but only conceptual / instrumental, which means there's no real distinction between the Godhead, which is modalism. Case 2, yeah, I mean, there's a contradiction and leave the life. If I was you, I'd take the last one. Next slide. Refuting potential rebuttals for the third argument. Next slide. But paternity is indiscernible with the notional act itself, such as paternity is identical with the act of begetting itself. Therefore, the relation is the basis. Well, guess what? Next slide. Relation is the basis, huh? John Capriolis rejects this notion. Thomas Cajetan rejects this notion. Ferrarianus rejects this notion. Anthionis rejects this notion. They all admitted at least a modal real distinction between the relation and basis. Francisco Suarez is the only one who denies the distinction and thus aligns up with the nominals. Why? Because the universe is not real. Next slide. Well, I'll save this one for the cross-examination. No worries. In my time, I'll save that one.
Let me go ahead and close out of this stuff here, and turn this.
Is there any way you can put a timer on? Because I don't want to yap for too long.
Yeah, I got you. Let me go ahead and just put one in the source tab here. I'll make one for you. All right, we'll put a countdown inside of the thing. Set you to 18 minutes so that you could just tell me whenever you're done. All right. Go ahead.
Can I start now? Oh, yeah.
Go
Okay, so what is the Trinity? I define the Trinity as three subsisting relations within the divine essence. And the model I hold to is impure relative identity, which accepts, the impure relative identity strategy does not adopt the full-blown theory of identity, but interprets Trinitarian statements using RI-style predicates as the same God as, and not the same person as. Language is explained via RI like predicates, like Peter Van Wagen's strategy. He uses special RI predicates, same being as and same person as, without committing to Geach's logic. This translates to the Father is God in assuming like formalized and like existential qualifier of X, the Father, parentheses of X, like and the divine like X. The Father is the same God, the Son is the same God as the Father, the Holy Spirit is the same God as the Father and the Son. The Father is not the same divine person as the Son, the Father is not the same divine person as the Holy Spirit, and the Son is not the same divine person as the Holy Spirit. For my opponent to win, he must show within the model that I hold to in the Trinity, it breaks creedal or magisterial commitments, or that impure relative identity entails like three gods. This debate isn't about the incarnation or hypostatic properties of how much Greek I can speak or Latin. I'm on the negation, so I'll just be preempting common criticisms to my view. My first offensive argument is a rebutting reasoning defeater. You appeal to Leibniz's law to assume the persons are different things and or entities, but I deny that. So Leibniz's law is not applicable to this context and cannot function as a valid objection. If this is so, then you have to justify the metaphysical assumption or invent a mid-debate ad hoc hypothesis that accounts for the internal semantics of orthodox Trinitarian statements. Argument 2. Leibniz's law doesn't account for context-sensitive sortals. My opponent assumes God across different sortals who by person and essence are different. Argument 3. Impure relative identity avoids committing to rigid, fully individuated entities by relativizing identity to sortals. Premise 1 for argument 3 is that absolute identity requires that for all X there exists unique aseity H such that X is equal to that H. Premise 2, aseities are primitive identity grounding entities. Premise 3, posting aseity and metaphysical commitments, entities are beyond empirical or conceptual structure. Premise 4, impure relative identity replaces absolute identity with identity under a sortal, which is X equals Y, X equals S and Y. Premise 5, X equals S, so Y doesn't entail X equals Y simpliciter, hence doesn't require H of X. Conclusion, therefore, impure relative identity avoids its commitment to aseities and rigid individualization. Premise 1 for my fourth argument is that let X equal S, meaning identity relative to the sortal, example, God or person. Like premise 2, classical metaphysics assumes identity is absolute and trans-total, and X equals Y follows that X equals S. And premise 3, in impure RI, identity is internal to a sortal cross-sortal substitution is invalid. Premise 4, therefore, IRI and blocks inference form from X equals S, Y to X equals Y, unless S is the maximal sort. Thus, IRI doesn't entail a required privilege relation that ranges across all ontological kinds. Conclusion, IRI reduces ontological commitments by denying a global identity operator and is more parsimonious. Assume that a language L with a binary predicate equals S interpreted as a sort of relative identity. Premise 2, define S to be relative, symmetric, or contextual transitive with S. Let F and S satisfy F equals G, S equals G, and H equals G. But the Father is not the Son, and the Father is not the Son, the Holy Spirit is not the Son, and the Son is not the Father. But etc. Okay, and Premise 4 introduces G for uniqueness, and from these assumptions, no contradiction arises in standard first-order logic, and there's I can provide a Fitch proof if needed. Therefore, impure relative identity is consistent and avoids ontological cost of absolute individualization. To my seventh argument, in modal metaphysics, cross-world identity requires trans-world individuals or residuators. This premise 2 entails post-aeseities or identity-fixing facts across possible worlds. Premise 3, RII, allows for statements like X equals G in world 1 and Y equals G in world 2 without entailing X equals Y. Premise 4, RI expresses cross-world sameness with respect to G without requiring that X and Y be numerically the same individual. Premise 5, no transworld entity or hisiety is required to ground this relation. Thus, RI explains modal sameness without ontological inflation. Now to my modal proofs and arguments, I guess. Sorry, my doxastic arguments first, but okay. Theological idea rationality, I have a syllogism for both rationality and epistemic norms. So theological context analysis under high epistemic standards like apologetics and analytic theology. The epistemic norm is if a proposition is metaphysically coherent and best explains the divine revelation, then ideally a rational agent ought to believe it. Minor premise is that the doctrine of the Trinity is metaphysically coherent because it doesn't entail like a logical contradiction within the model subscribed to. Therefore, ideally, a rational agent ought to believe the doctrine of the Trinity. The context for bound rationality is ordinary believers and limited information and testimony reliance. The bounded epistemic norm is just going to be that if a belief is true but held incompletely on misgrounded grounds. Sorry, I think I skipped over one. All right. If a proposition is taught by credible divine authority, then there's no overriding defeaters to this belief, and it's boundly rational to believe it. The Trinity is taught by a credible divine authority, Scripture, the Apostolic Church, and no accessible defeaters undermine it for ordinary believers. Therefore, it is boundly rational for the believer to affirm the doctrine of the Trinity. Now I have some Bayesian probability rising arguments. Like if the probability of the Trinity being true increases upon the reception of divine revelation using Bayes' rule, then rational agents, whether ideally are bounded or justified in believing it. The minor premise is that divine revelation significantly raises the probability of the Trinity being true H for both ideal and bounded agent. Conclusion, therefore, ideal and bounded agents are rationally justified in believing the Trinity. Now to possible world semantics argument for the Trinity. It is metaphysically possible the divine essence necessarily subsists as three persons. Justified on metaphysical coherence of the Trinity relations in Aquinas' Summa Theologica 27 through 43. The S5 axiom states that if something is possibly necessary, then it is necessary. Therefore, from 1 and 2, the Trinity is metaphysically necessary. The S5 axiom states that if something is necessary, it's true in the actual world. Therefore, it's true in... the Trinity is true in the actual world. Now to the more other epistemic arguments. If a belief is justified, incomplete, or misleading grounds, it is subject to epistemic luck, then it's not knowledge. So these are just the critiques against JTB. But to believe that God is unipersonal can be justified by selective scripture or rationality, simplicity. This can be false and based on an incomplete revelation. So this is a Gettier case. Therefore, JTB is insufficient for theological knowledge and knowledge of God's nature. That he is triune requires more than internal justification, namely a non-accidental grounding such as divine revelation. If a belief, major premise affirming the Trinity, if a belief is true, non-accidentally formed, and reliably grounded in divine revelation, then it can count as knowledge even without classical JCB. The proper function is externalism or revelation-based epistemology. The belief that God is triune is revealed by Scripture and formed properly in a theological context. Therefore, belief in the Trinity can be knowledge even if it doesn't conform to the classical JTB analysis. And I just have more on my Bayesian calculations if anyone wants to see. But also it gives me more credence to believe in my prior as if it's internally consistent and it's parsimonious. So it doesn't need to be metaphysically compelling, but once divine revelation is or evidence, Bayesian update mechanisms make belief in the Trinity rationally required or warranted. Even with agents as defeaters or low prior confidence, agents must raise their credence on an epistemic plane. Yeah, no, that's all.
I'm going to go ahead and stop this timer for now. You don't really need to use that right now. So just delete that. So now we're going to go ahead and move on to 10-minute refutations. Ahmed, you now have the ability to spend 10 minutes refuting him.
Inshallah, I can generate whatever he said, right? So to start off, Zero, I know this is your first time doing the debates, but when you have an audience, you're not speaking to me. You're speaking to the entire life. So you have people who know vocabulary to people who don't know vocabulary, right? So you have to be very vocal in what you're saying. You can't be ambiguous. You can't use words that you know that people are not going to understand because you're not trying to win me, you're trying to win the people, okay? I'm just giving you some big bro advice, little bro.
But to start from the first stuff, right? Let's speak English now, guys. So there's a few things he said, right? He said there are three subsisting relations that it just shows there are three relative realities. According to Aquinas and Augustine, me and you, we're two relative realities, but one absolute reality. This is actually similar to, I know you don't hold to Great Nyssa, but if you read the Cappadocians on the Three Gods by Great Nyssa, Blablios, who was part of the Unimans, he writes to Saint Nyssa that we have three, subsistences, Peter, John, and so on, in the same essence. You have three gods, right? But one essence, right? This is a similar point. Me and you, we have the same difference. We have two different relative realities, but we have one absolute reality, right? But the thing is, I'm hearing your position. You said you hold to relative identity. This is not the position of Thomas Aquinas. When you're believing in absolute divine simplicity, you guys don't not believe in relative identity, as it would seem to lead to composition of essence and existence. And this was like an error that Gregory Nyssa had to, and St. Basil Caesar, they had to counter, because from universal particular relations, this would entail compositions, potentiality. This is one of the reasons why Gregory Nyssa, when he was learning about relative identity, he rejected it, but he held to, he didn't reject relative identity, he held to immanent realism. So he rejected transitivity when saying that God's absolutely the persons. He holds to relative identity that A equals B, but B does not equals A. However, he holds to immanent realism that says that the essence is per se within a person, okay? It's not like there's a universal, and that's composites between each particular. A few more things you said. The S5 axiom. This is like the 10th time you brought this up, and I don't know why you bring this up. We're talking about metaphysics. The S5 axiom, guys, says that, now I'm gonna translate for you guys what Zero said. An S5 axiom said that if X is necessarily possible, right? That if X is possible in all worlds, is necessarily possible, right? This is S5 axiom. And this has nothing to do with this, okay? Because I'm not talking about modality. I'm not arguing contingency. I'm arguing about the source of how he counts it, okay? But the thing is, but here's the thing, right? You have not addressed a single thing I've said. When you talk about there being three substantive relations, you have to understand that there are three individual substances of rational nature. And when we talk about of rational nature, Saint Albert Magnus, the teacher of Thomas Aquinas himself, he divides it into two cases, ablative and genitive. How are you going to hold to relative identity if he's using a case of going to be a genitive case? Because he gives the example of the creature of sand. That's genitive. It signifies intention of modes of vacation. However, when regarding the knife of iron, this is going to be relative identity. However, this is ablative case. And what's common in all four definitions, right? When the first definition, I have the book right here, but Boethius said, and Contradict and Notorious, that it's an individual substance of rational nature. That's genitive. A person is an incomplete existence of intellectual nature. That's genitive. A person is existing by itself only according to a certain mode of rational existence. That's genitive. A person is a distinct hypostasis with an incomplete property pertaining to dignity. It's going to be referring to designation per se. So one of the errors I see is you're trying to be a sophist. I know this is your first debate ever. You want to sound smart. And I used to be like you. I used to say, but you have to understand, you're not trying to win me. You're trying to win the audience, okay? Bryce has those memories. I know you, Bryce. But regarding this, I gave you something, right? If we're talking about the mode of rational existence, right? We have a mode of agency. Now, for the Father and the Holy Spirit to share the same mode of agency, they have to be the same agent in his genus first kind, okay? For something to be the same substance, they must share the same commentative universal. This is what Thomas Aquinas says, Posture Analysis, Lecture 5, okay? And he says regarding this, he says that an agent is divided into univocal and equivocal. And that's the Father is an univocal agent, meaning that He did an act that's about himself, of the same kind of himself. He begat the Son. This is a univocal act. However, the Holy Spirit has not did a begetting. The Holy Spirit did not beget the Son, nor did anything process from him. This shows that he's an equivocal agent, not a univocal agent. So we see that there's going to be a distinction of mode of rational existence, but also the mode of agency, right? And this is going to be from my argument too. You said that you're not talking about hypostatic union, we're talking about individuals of acts, right? According to the communication of idioms, right? According to theologic operations of John Damascus, book 4, chapter 4, and John Damascus, book 3, De Fide, chapter 28 in John Damascus, De Fide, I think is chapter 11, I think, yeah, book 3. He talks about theologic reciprocity, theologic energy, and how it's represented to predication of Christ, right? That Jesus walked, but the Father did not walk, right? And so we see an individuation of actions being predicated from the Father, for the Son, but not the Father, right? So the thing is, I gave you what you could respond with. You can say that, okay, there's one extra add, right? Add extra act, right? But this shows that we cannot know the distinction in reality, but only instrumentally. This is modalism, okay? And the thing is, you were reading equations. You're reading equations off your screen, but not even explaining them, okay? So when you give an equation, you must give the variables, for instance, right? If it's about context, right? Because we signify variables to context or meaning, right? Or adjectives, or we're signifying to nouns or predications or such and such, right? Depending if you're in fourth order logic, second order logic, such and such, right? But the thing is, you have not refuted a single thing I said, right? I said that paternity is the Father, right? John Caprios rejects the notion that paternity is the act of beginning. Cajetan rejects the notion. Ferrarianus rejects the notion. Gaudin rejects the notion. Francisco Soares is the only one who accepts this and is anomalous in this case, right? Because if the Father's paternity, but Father beget the Son, but paternity did not beget the Son, that means the only way with the Father to individually act in opposition to paternity is by begetting the Son conceptually, right? And this is some issues I find, right? You're conflating modality. We're not talking about modality. We're talking about literal ontology, right? We're talking about sortals. I don't understand why I talk about modal logic. Okay, you do this all the time with the I am Moses. Okay. So yeah, we refuted that S5 axiom has nothing to do with the Trinity, right? I refuted that you said you have 3 relative substances. This shows that you have 3 relative substances, meaning you have 3 agents, right? Because one absolute reality, according to the Fourth Lateran Council of Vatican Constitution II, right, that's going to be something that's going to be referred to the essence, as Thomas Aquinas also refers it to being the quiddity of something, while relative agency, according to Aristotle, is going to be something that can act on and that can be passive on, right? So you have 3 agents and 3 patients, right? These 3 agents can also be patients at the same time, okay? Also, I gave you an equation that you have not refuted, right? But I'm going to go with the easier one for you, right? If the Father's subsistence and so is the Son, while they're both causally efficient, and there exists a set of qualities of the Father and the Son, however they remain equitable, the following is concluded. Each subsistent must obtain its own experimental reality per se. Each subsistent must obtain experimental causal efficiency per se. And each subsistent must be predicated of divinity per se, not actually should, because you reject communicability, right? It's incommunicable. Therefore, you cannot hold on to relative identity, or you're going to find a potentiality of a composition between essence and existence, right? Because that which is relative is not absolute, and that which is absolute has to do with simplicity, right? That has to be independent and not dependent, right? Because we see that the composition between essence and existence, like existence is dependent on is now on essence, but essence is dependent on existence for its formality, but existence is dependent on essence for its materiality, right? But yeah, I'm gonna go get I'm gonna get like a burger or something.
And now we're gonna move on
okay.
to the 10 minutes for Zero. I guess Zero gets to just, do a casual monologue like John Montenegro at the Council of Florence. Go ahead, bro.
I mean, yeah, okay. Has it started yet?
Let me go ahead and set it up. You want me to just consistently show it?
Yeah, can you, if you could, please.
All right, I got you. Bryce J racist. No, he's a person, bro. He's a person. Don't do that to me. All right. Let me go ahead and just put this like that. All right, you ready?
Yeah.
All right, here you go.
Yeah, I guess he didn't really like rejoin any of my arguments, and like I don't hold to the Thomistic Trinity, so none of them apply. He didn't respond to like my best argument, which is a rebutting reason defeater, which means it's undercutting like having it just sorry, it means it's undercutting the reason for the belief in the first place, because like if he's presupposing that Leibniz's law is just something going to be like absolute identity, then that's just something I don't have to accept within classical logic. And again, I said he did what I said he's going to do. Like he just gave an ad hoc hypothesis that wasn't relevant to my model of the Trinity. And again, he didn't like rejoin any of my points, but I guess I can like reiterate them, because again, he brings up like paternity and like how the son is begotten. Again, like that's conflating again across sortals, like I said he was going to do in my opening statement, because hypostatic properties are not essential properties, which is obviously not the same thing. Again, he didn't answer like my parsimony argument, where I demonstrated that if we commit to like Leibniz's law, we're going to have more ontological commitments because of like aseities and individuated entities that are not relative to a sortal. And yeah. So, and then also he didn't answer a single argument I had about the epistemic standards and what constitutes like doxastic belief and epistemic belief. He just like was doing some rhetoric stuff. He never answered my Bayesian argument, how I showed that my probabilities can like be, or sorry, my credence can be raised to like 70% given the priors that I have. So he didn't answer that either. He says that the S5 axiom isn't relevant, which is surprising when we like invoke modal operators like possibility necessarily, and it is relevant because like when we're talking about what is metaphysically possible, it's just gonna be something consistent with the laws of metaphysics. And if we're saying the Trinity is going to entail three gods, or like it's inconsistent with the laws of metaphysics, he's yet to show it. Also, like a metaphysical necessary, it means it follows from the laws of metaphysics. But again, he didn't rejoin any of my points about like the S5 axiom and how I could demonstrate it using what's possible to be what's necessary. And yeah. You never answered my like argument about knowledge, or like how I defeat JTB by providing or showing how it can fail by giving a guttier case, specifically in application to the Trinity. And yeah, he never gives defeaters to impure relative identity. He doesn't formalize any arguments against the model that I hold to. He doesn't demonstrate how it leads to three gods. He just like purely rhetorics and not any substance. Like, but yeah, that's all I need. And he says like he uses all the other definitions for person except the one that I hold to, like which Aquinas uses in like the Summa Theologica Prima Pars question 29 as an individual subsistence of a rational nature, which is just that's how I view person. But he gave every single commentator of Aquinas, like he also like used Albert Magnus, and then he did this weird thing where he said Albert Magnus taught Aquinas, therefore you like hold to his view, which again he thinks that like since I say I'm a Thomist, I'm committed to every like, and again like this is funny because like Peter Geach is an analytical Thomist who holds to RI, which like again I don't know why. And he also said that I think he said if we're talking about modes of subsistence, they would be like genuses or species. Aquinas disagrees. Like in the Compendium Theologica, he says he's not a genus in chapter 12, and he says he's not in a genus in chapter 12, but he says he isn't one in chapter 13. He also says in chapter 14 that God isn't a particular and a universal or a universal. Which yeah, those are the points that I made. He didn't address them like at all. So yeah. Yeah, I'm done.
Alrighty. Exceeded the rest of his time. So now we're going to get into the juicy stuff, the best part of the conversation. Right? Let me go ahead and turn this thing off here. Now we're gonna go ahead and move into the 20-minute cross examinations. Ahmed, Qureshi, you now get to cross examine Zero, and then Zero will get to cross examine.
No, I cross examine him first since he's the affirmative speaker.
I cross-examine you first.
Yeah, so
That's not how that works.
Because you just rebutted.
So I cross examine him.
You just rebutted. So then therefore he would cross.
I know exactly.
Is this your first time?
No, I've had more. This is why I don't understand how you don't know the structure because
you just went. No one
okay,
wants to hear your
just
voice
go ahead.
again, bro.
Dude, the people in the comments don't want to hear you.
Really?
Yes. Okay, just go ahead, dude. I'm not doing the meta. What's your first question?
Okay, Bryce started. Are there accidents with crosshead?
No.
Okay. Does the father have a hypostatic property that the son is not?
Yeah, that's not an accident.
Yeah, it's going to be accident. Proper property.
What? No, it's not, bro.
Yes.
Okay, it's not an accident.
Because an accident is that which is not essential. If the father has a property and he shares the same essence with the son, okay, that means this property is an accident because it's not conflicted with his ontology, okay?
I mean, I know I can't ask questions, but like, I mean,
No,
you didn't provide an argument for that in your opening.
That's not how you respond. Every time you get pushed in a corner, you don't get asked what's argument.
I can't respond to the question.
Because listen, if X and Y, they share the same essence, they do not have accidents, that means all the properties of X, both property and essential, are identical with Y.
No, I answered that in my rebuttal.
Because essence.
Hold on, can I respond?
Hey, Ahmed,
you don't get a response. It's my questioning.
Well, I mean, you gotta at least let Zero answer the question you ask him, right?
I know, I got the answer I respond, right? Because this is incorrect. Thank you for your response, but this is incorrect, right? The Greek word ousia, which means substance, right, represents the foundation of such properties, right? For X and Y to be homoousios, to be of the same substance, same essence, they must share the same essential properties. If you reject accidents, you're saying that all the properties between the father and son are essential. For them to share the essence, they have to have the same properties because both properties will be essential. Is it necessary for the father to be paternity to be distinct from the son?
No. He has a property of paternity, but that's not like essential to a divine person who's distinct from the Son, because the Holy Spirit doesn't have paternity, but is distinct from the Son relatively.
No. Oh, does the Father get relation to opposition by paternity?
Does the Father get to relate? Like, what is? I don't know what that means.
You don't know.
Is the Father relatively? I do know what that means. Are you asking me? Is the Father's relation that is relatively opposed to the Son what constitutes his hypostasis?
Constitutes relative identity, constitutes relative reality.
Okay, I don't even know what. Okay, you're asking me, does it constitute relative reality?
Listen.
What the?
You said the Father does not need paternity to be distinct from the Son. So
I
what
said
property?
A divine person.
Yeah, no problem. The Father does not need paternity to be distinct from the Son.
Yeah, because I qualified it.
That means
divine
the Father.
Persons can
That
be,
means the
okay,
Father.
go ahead.
No problem. We're talking about the divine person. The divine person, Father, does not have to be paternity to be distinct from the Son. That means paternity was causally inefficient.
Was
you
that
just
a
conceded to
question?
my biggest points.
Was that a question,
You conceded
bro?
to my biggest points. No, shut up. Okay, now listen. Given the conflation of ablative case and genitive case, right? How do you hold on to relative identity while using a genitive case of individual substance and rational nature?
What? Wait, you're asking me? Are you asking like logical like what's the modal scope of that?
Okay, modal scope's not a thing. You made that word up.
I mean, it invokes like modal operators, like possibility, should, necessarily. I need to know what the domain is that it falls under.
Okay. Did you just make up the word modal scope just now?
No, it wasn't my term. It's a colloquial term that I've heard on TikTok.
No. Did you invent the word modal scope yourself?
I just answered that. No, I didn't.
Wallah, you did, and wallah, you told me you did.
Dude, what is this cross-examination, bro?
Modal scope is not a thing. He's making shit up. Uqsum billah.
Oh
Wallah, he's making this up.
Okay, that's great. Do you have a question?
Modal scope is not a thing. Wallah, he's not a thing. He's making up words in the cross-examination. He's a
dude, go to fallacy files, modal scope fallacy, and you'll find it there.
We're not talking about ChatGPT, we're talking about actual documents, actual books. Right?
What? I didn't say ChatGPT. I said fallacy files.
Yeah, modal scope is nothing. Okay. Now listen. What's
Okay,
your
go ahead. Ask me a question.
Yeah, no shots. So, is the Father a relative substance?
Is a father relative? What do you mean by that?
You know what relative substance means?
Yeah, are you saying like the is God, like the where I would interpret that to mean like an is of identity? Like is a father relative to it as a person? Yes.
No, is the
Yeah, because I
Father is the
okay,
Father
go ahead.
described as a relative subsistence?
Is the father described as a relative subsistence? I mean, he's a mode of subsistence. It is unbegotten and
That's
generated
not
and
that's not my
spirated.
answer. Is the
That's
Father
not your answer or a
Father a
question.
relative subsistence? Yes or no?
Is he a subsistence that is relative to the divine
Oh my!
being?
You don't even know what relative substance is. Oh my days. Never mind. Next
Dude,
question.
okay, again, I'll
Stop!
just
Stop!
say
Stop
he's a
talking!
mode of
Stop talking! You're ruining
subsistence
my
within the
time. You're
divine
wasting
essence.
my time. You're
Okay,
wasting
go
my
ahead,
time.
man.
Okay. Have you read the Principle of Individuation by Thomas Aquinas?
What the I don't see how that's relevant.
What? Have you? Have you not?
Like, sure, let's just say I haven't, bro. Like, I see that it's not
So
relevant to the topic.
how are you arguing about the individuation of sortos then? You don't Thomas Aquinas' position.
How am I? Okay, how am
Thomas
I or
Aquinas.
why am I?
Yeah. No. How are you arguing about the individuation of sortos if Thomas Aquinas, his position of sortos is listed on the
Are you
of the
okay? Are you
individuation?
asking me in what manner I am doing the action
No,
or
I
why
mean,
I'm doing the
just,
action?
just one second. It's not relevant anymore because you haven't read the book. You have not became prepared for this debate. Okay. Is the
Alright, go
Father
ahead.
paternity?
Is the father paternity?
Yeah.
He's formally constituted by his paternal relation to the son.
Is the Father paternity? Yes or no?
I just answered that, bro.
No.
I just told you.
It's a
that
yes or no. It's a yes or no.
paternity is what's gonna wait. A yes or no to what?
It's a yes or no. Because if Thomas wants to say yes or no, you can. Is the Father paternity?
Dude, I came in with good faith. Is the father formally constituted by paternity? Yes.
Okay. However,
just said that.
paternity. But you said paternity is not necessary for the Father to be distinct from the Son.
No, I said it's not necessary for him to be a divine person.
No, you said, I asked you a question. Wallahi, it's on YouTube. We're streaming right now. I asked you, is it necessary for the Father to be identical to paternity, to be distinct from the Son?
That's not what you
said-
asked me, but
you
I guess
said
people
no.
can rewind it.
No, we can rewind it. You said no. Now you're saying yes. Okay. Now listen. Because you changed your answer, you changed your mind.
Okay, go ahead and ask me the next question, bro.
Is the paternity or is the property of inaskability shared by the Son?
Is the property of inaskability? No.
Okay, so the property of inaskability is apophatic or cataphatic?
What does that have to do with anything? It's just gonna be,
What? What do you mean it has to do anything? Is a cataphatic or apophatic?
yeah, it's not relevant to the topic.
Wallahi, it is.
You can say wallahi. I'm just gonna say I don't know.
So do you even know what cataphatic means?
Yeah. It's
What does it mean?
positive.
Okay, what does apophatic mean?
Negative.
Okay, so
obviously.
is inaskability positive or negative?
I lead to it being like are you saying like in the person of the father is it like
Is the word inaskable? Is it cataphatic or apophatic?
then I would say I would lean towards
Oh my
hold on.
days!
Can you like not cut me off while I'm answering?
It's
you?
in the name.
Yeah, I would just say like inaskability was just gonna fall into like apophatic if I had to pick.
Okay, now are apophatic properties substantial or logical?
What modal scope are you invoking when you say logical or
That's not a
like
thing.
that's
You're
a,
making a word up.
dude, you're
The
saying
father is
oh
answer
my
it's-
gosh, bro.
Is something a property that's apophatic? Is it logical or substantial? Thomas Aquinas answer. Wallahi answer.
I don't know what you mean by those terms. Can you clarify
Okay,
that? It's
now-
ambiguous.
So when something is cataphatic, it's going to be substantial. When something's inaskable, such as
Then I just told you the answer.
just no, shut up. You don't know. You don't know what substantial and logical means. Okay. So Thomas Aquinas,
Okay.
when he said that when you see a red apple, the property of being red is substantial within the apple per se. But the property of being not black, which is apophatic, is a logical abstraction based on the induction of the apple. Now, is the Father inaskable?
Yes.
Did he have this property eternally?
Yes.
Did the Father act on the Son?
Did the Father act on the Son? No, the Son is generated by mode of understanding of the Father's intellect. He's not generated by will. That's Arianism.
So the Father, so the Son's existence is not extramental.
What? Wait, when you say external, do you mean like determinist of the Son's existence is not going to be like intrinsic to the divine
the timeliness of the
being?
Son is extramental.
No, it's going to be ad intro because he's proceeding. It's an imminent procession from the Father.
Okay. So the distinction between the Father, Son, Holy Spirit are conceptual.
No, what? They're really distinct.
Okay,
Because
it's really distinct.
being begotten
It has to be what you're
unbegotten and begotten are really distinct.
Okay, if something is really distinct, it's in reality. It's extramental, you goof. Now,
How
is
does
the
that-
Father?
okay, that doesn't follow,
Is
but
the
okay.
Father? Is the Father not the Son extramentally?
Dude, if you just mean it's like gonna be like add extra, then no. Like,
Okay, is the Father the Son extramentally? Yes or no?
I just answered, bro. I literally just answered your question.
No. You have to respond yes or no.
Dude, I don't.
True dichotomy.
Okay, yes or no? Where is
Listen,
it? Okay,
listen,
there is no
listen,
dichotomy,
how
bro. Like, I don't know what the
treating
heck you're
today, I'ma
giving
treat
me.
you, okay? So if
The
you're gonna
disjunction, it doesn't follow because there's no dichotomy.
wait, what?
There
Yes,
is
it
no
is.
either
It
or,
is or it's
bro.
not. It is or
Okay,
it's not.
repeat the two options that I have.
Yeah. Is the Father identical to the Son extramentally?
Is he identical to the Son? Extramentally. I don't even know what that means. He's not identical to the Son because he's distinct from the Son.
Okay, so you don't know what extramentally means. Okay, you don't.
He's gonna be like identical in being, like numerically.
Thank you. You have not even responded to a single question I've asked you. But okay, no problem.
Okay, go
So,
ahead.
is the distinction between the Father and Son ad intra or ad extra?
Ad intro.
Is ad intra logical or extramental?
Is ad intra logical or extramental?
Yes.
Dude, I don't know what that means. Are you saying that it's...
So yeah, you definitely don't read Thomas Aquinas.
Dude, I know what
something's
ad intra is. I just don't know what you were meaning with this question.
Yeah,
What are you requesting?
This is what happens when you read ChatGPT, but you don't read Thomas
Okay,
Aquinas.
that's great.
So listen, right? Is the Father distinct from the Son
Yes.
extramentally or logical?
What does that cash out to be? I want to say like logically and
Logically
sorry, I would
means
say logically.
conceptual. It means
Wait,
conceptual.
hold on. If that's not how I would use logical, then I wouldn't say then if that's what you think.
Is Thomas Aquinas using it?
Okay, what? Okay, if you mean by logical like conceptual, then no.
Okay, so the Father is distinct from the Son extramentally, right?
Yeah, if that just cashes out to be like a real
Is the
distinction.
Is the Father divine per se?
Is the Father divine per se?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, Son divine per se.
Sure, I would say so.
Okay, why don't you have two gods?
What? How does that follow?
Yeah, why don't you have two gods?
Okay, that's like your burden for the one AC in the rebuttals, but you couldn't provide
why
the
it's not two gods.
justification.
Explain why it's not two gods.
Wait, what? You want me to explain why a proposition is false that you haven't like proven?
Okay, you're taking too much time. You don't want to do this. Okay, listen.
Dude, you had 18 minutes, bro. Come on.
Stop. Listen, you're not prepared. Now listen. Is the essence identical to mercy?
What does that cash out to be?
No, is the essence mercy?
Yeah, in what sense?
No, in the univocal sense. There's only one sense it could be.
What the heck? Oh no, you're just presupposing it's univocal.
No. Okay, exhausstantiate it. Give exhausstantiation of it.
Exhausstantiation of what mercy can be?
No, give an exhausstantiation on how
Oh my
essence
gosh, bro.
is mercy. Go ahead.
Yeah, because I believe anything in God is identical to his essence, like divine simplicity.
Okay, so what's the intelligible concept of mercy?
What does that have to do with what I just said?
What's the intelligible concept of mercy?
Yeah, what does that mean? What are you asking me?
Okay, listen. If you believe in ADS, where the attributes are identical to the essence, there means you're reducing a transcendental relation between essence and attributes, because the quiddity is the whatness and the qualities describe the whatness, right? If you see the quality is identical to the whatness, then you don't have anything to explain about the qualities. Therefore, if you see that God is mercy, then mercy is the essence. Well, what is the attributes of mercy? What qualifies mercy?
Well, that wouldn't follow. I would just say that it's going to be an attribute of the essence.
According to in ADS is mercy power.
What the heck? What? Okay, you're like using index.
Is mercy
hold on.
power? Is mercy power, yes or no?
Again, I just told you in an equivocal sense. Sure,
Ju-
I don't see the issue now.
Okay, univocalize it.
What? What do you mean univocalize it? It's equivocal.
Yes, okay.
It is
So
two more. It has
just-
more than one meaning.
Zero,
I just
listen,
did.
Listen, zero, listen. X is equivocal if it's a multiplicity of meanings. Can you give
Exactly.
me one meaning of it? Okay, exhausstantiate it.
I just gave you a meaning. I can just
No.
take it to pick. Now I can't talk. Okay, I just gave you another way, a sense you can use a term that other than what you use it as. Therefore, it would be univocal, or sorry, equivocal.
Okay.
Like, because you can
explain-
use it to be like an attribute that is identical to the
Explain.
divine essence.
Explain the transcendental relation between the essence and mercy.
Explain? I don't even know what the question is asking me.
You don't know what transcendental relation is.
No, I know what transcendental is. It just means like above all
a
categories.
transcendental relation.
Okay. Like, are you mean in like the logical sense, like the classical logic sense?
No.
Like, if A is identical to B and B is identical to C, that A is identical to C. Is that what you mean?
We're not talking about transitivity.
Well, then what are we talking about? You said trans.
No,
Oh my
I
gosh,
said
bro.
transcendental. You goof.
Okay, you said transcendental.
Days.
Okay, what does that pick
No!
out? I'm just gonna ask
No!
an ambiguous term. Define it. Go ahead.
Explain the transcendental relation between the essence and mercy.
What do you mean by transcendental? Go ahead and just tell me.
Yeah,
what you mean by that.
transcendental is a transcendental is a being that exceeds the 10 categories of Aristotle.
A being that transcends the 10 categories of Aristotle.
Yeah, it transcends the predicament relation.
Then mercy wouldn't be a being. I don't take that.
My days. Mercy
Are you good,
has
bro?
some type of ontology either way. This is called a transcendental. Okay, let me explain.
Oh,
Let me
you're
teach
asking
you real
me,
quick,
bro.
okay? So there's
Okay, go ahead, man.
something called a transcendental relation and a predicamental relation. Okay, so there's no point because you don't know what the form of the last word means. Okay, it is individual subsistent rational nature. Where'd you get this from?
Question 29 of the Summa Theologica, Article 2, reply to Objection 1 and reply to Objection 2.
Yeah, and where does he get it from?
Boethius.
Yeah, and what does Boethius say?
Yeah, he says it's gonna be like a substance of an individual substance of a rational nature, and Aquinas actually
Yeah.
commentates on this when he takes it to mean
okay,
self-subsistent being. If that's all that you hold on, God doesn't have secondary
I
substance.
said Boethius.
Oh
Listen,
my
I said
goodness,
Boethius. Okay, can you
Yeah,
tell
he
me
doesn't
the
use
difference?
Boethius' definition. He just uses like suppositories.
Listen. Stop talking. Now, tell me the difference between an individual subsistence and an individual substance in the context of the divine person.
Oh, I'd love to. Yeah, because we would just say that God only has primary substances. If that's all that you mean by individual substance, then I agree. So it's just going to be like the one substance that is...
Bro.
Can I finish,
What makes primary, not secondary?
What does that even mean, bro?
What makes a primary substance not secondary?
What makes a primary substance not a secondary substance?
Yeah.
That's a good question. Hold on.
Are you fucking stupid? This is the most easy shit ever.
Yeah,
a
well, I'll just
primary
say I
is
don't know
individual.
clickbait, bro.
A primary is an individual. A secondary is going to be something abstract. You're fucking stupid.
Yeah, I can just say like I'm dumb on this, but like it's not relevant to the topic. I don't have no problem with it.
Oh
Like,
my days! You said that's
It's not a pop quiz on scholastic terms.
You
bro.
said this was the biggest question ever. What makes primary a primary?
Wait, I never
substance?
actually said that. by the way.
Okay. How many?
But I did
secondary
give the
substances-
correct definition of, I did tell you what a primary substance
Congratulations.
was and how it relates to the Trinity.
Okay, half point. I'll give you half point for that. Okay.
Okay, that's kind of arbitrary, but go ahead.
No, okay, listen. Well, I think we concluded like who won. I don't think I have to
Okay,
even
just
do
go
my
ahead and
point.
ask a question.
I don't think I even have to ask a question no more, but it's no problem. I'll just...
I mean, that is the point of the cross-examination.
Thank
Are
you for
conceding
speaking
your
my
time, bro?
cross-examination time. Now listen. Is the Father active on the Spirit anyway?
What? Is the Father active on the what?
On the spirits.
I don't know what that means, bro.
Yeah, does the Father act on the spirits?
That's ambiguous. What does that mean?
No, in the ambiguous sense, does the Father act on the
Dude, in the ambiguous sense, that just means you don't know what it means. How am I supposed to tell you what it means in the ambiguous sense, bro?
Okay, does the Father have any causal efficiency on the Spirit, where the Spirit becomes a patient? It's called notional act.
What? Okay, is the Father like the originator of the Spirit?
You're wasting too much time. Are the notional acts conceptual or real?
I would say the notional acts are real.
What does notion mean?
Like, it's just gonna be like divine. Like Aquinas used a notion to be that or a concept or divine idea which you know about a divine person.
No. So a notional act is conceptual because it comes from Latin notio. Notio idea. This is what it's
Okay, that's great. But Aquinas does say that it's just gonna be an idea or a concept which you know about a divine person.
Wrong answer.
I mean, I can show it to you in the Summa Theologica where he uses that.
Okay. Is the term God ambiguous?
What? It depends on the context. You haven't
Yes.
like given me it relative to context or like
This was the worst
index.
debate in my life. You
Okay,
have to
I'm glad. Okay, now I get to start my cross examination.
Yeah, okay.
Well, those 20 minutes flew by.
All right. Wait, that was 20 minutes, bro.
Yeah, that was 20 minutes. bro.
Ahmed.
You don't have
my
to
first
spend that
quest-
if you don't want to,
Oh,
but
sorry.
go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, my first question to you is, Ahmed, does your logical system correctly express impure relative identity equivalence relations?
You have to reduce the notion.
What?
Reduce the notion.
What do you mean by reduce the notion?
Yeah,
I asked
reduce
you
the
what,
notion.
like, I
When
don't know
you-
what you're saying.
Yeah, so when you're reducing a notion, you have to univocalize it.
Dude, what does that have to do with what I asked you? I asked you about your logical system
yeah,
and how it like
because-
correctly expresses
Okay,
the equivalence
okay.
relations of relative identity.
Can you exhaustivate it?
Dude, that has nothing to do. Okay, this is my cross examination, dude. That has nothing to do with my question. Please answer my question.
No, I asked for exhaustivation.
Dude, why are you asking me a question? It's not your cross
You asked me
examination.
questions. I can ask you questions.
Yeah,
back.
clarifying questions.
Yeah, just a
clarifying
clarifying
questions.
question. Can you give me exhaustivation of your
Oh
account?
my gosh, bro. Okay, just to be clear, I asked him, does the logical system you're using correctly express impure relative identity equivalence relations? That is the question that I asked.
Okay, can you exhaustivate it?
Dude, are you just not gonna answer the question, bro?
No, I'm asking for clarification.
Dude, what
You don't
needs
want-
to be
you don't want
clarified?
to
What's
answer
ambiguous? Okay, index to classical logic. That's what's being denoted.
Okay, so 3 laws of logic. What about it? Exhaustivate it.
Okay, does your classical logic system correctly express impure relative identity equivalence relations?
In the law of identity, no, I don't use classical logic.
What the heck? What? Okay, so you don't hold on. You don't use classical logic,
I don't use law of identity, you goof.
bro. Okay,
not using
so
that
just to
for
be
your-
clear, right?
I'm not
The
using-
entire
I'm not using
LPT.
Leibniz.
Hold on.
I'm not using
Why are
Leibniz.
you okay? He has multiple laws, but why are you okay? The LPT is centered around classical logic and Leibniz's law of indiscernibles. So if you're not using that, then you can see that it's
indiscernibility, you goof.
what? It's not indiscernible,
Yeah, it's not relative identity or not.
dude. Okay, okay. I'm just gonna get back to my question because,
Are you
like, okay,
serious?
can
You
you
think
express the
relative
dude?
It's
let's
not.
see
It's
my
not.
cross-
It's
it's
not
my
your. It's not your
cross-examination,
cross
bro.
exam
It's my
time,
cross-
Ahmed. It's not your cross exam time, Ahmed.
Okay. Does does classical logic correctly express impure relative identity index to the formulations you gave in your 1AC?
Can you exhaustivate it?
Dude, is this all you're gonna do in my cross examination time, bro?
Wait, you can't. Can you know what exhaustivation is?
Dude, I don't know what you take that to mean.
What?
Like, I know what exhaust means. It just like give multiple ways and like
Yeah. Okay.
instantiate.
yeah,
like, I don't know how you're using that
You
term.
need to at least
Yeah,
attempt to
it's
answer
very univocal in
questions.
context.
Dude, can you just please answer my question, bro? Like, it's not a hard
It's
question.
univocal. Exhaustivate it.
What is univocal? Okay, what's univocal? Just answer it in the univocal sense. If you think I mean logical system, and you take that to mean like a univocal, that's great. Just answer it that way.
Yeah, I can sure.
Or univocal, yeah.
Yeah, I can sure.
You can? Okay, can you please do it?
No, I answered your question. Your previous question, dummy.
How did you answer my question? Okay, what was my question? And repeat the response.
Yeah, you're asking if my classical logic system entails, expresses, and encodes.
Wrong. That's not what I asked you. I asked if it correctly expresses impure relative identity equivalence relation.
Yeah, that's what I said, you goof.
That is not what you said.
I
You
mean,
said
yeah,
entail. Hold on. You said entail. I never said entail. So, I mean, that
Yeah,
sounds
if it
like
entails
I didn't
encoding,
say that.
goof.
Okay, I'm going to move on to my next question since you didn't answer.
Okay,
I
well, ask
noticed
your
in your
question.
formulation
Ask
of
your other
Leibniz law in the 1AC, it isn't relativized. So what's the argument that only identity statements that are allowed in classical logic are absolutes? Like,
never said-
that
yeah,
use Leibniz's law.
Yeah. I
so
never
you
said that.
wouldn't say,
never said
okay,
that.
so
Yeah,
you,
most of it.
okay, great. So
Most
you
of
would
it.
deny that claim, right?
What? You can use both.
You would
relative
say,
identity
hold,
cases.
oh my gosh, can you like stop? Let me
You
finish
can
asking
use
the
formal
question.
relations, for example, formal identity. You can use absolute,
Oh my
absolute.
God, bro.
For relative identity, you can use material identity. You use relative, right? Use
Dude, okay, I have no idea what you just said, but that was gibberish. Okay, just to be clear, you're gonna deny, or sorry, you
I
would
can't answer your
accept
question.
that. Hold, why are you interrupting me while I'm asking
He's
a
asking
question?
a
I
question.
answered
So
your
you
question.
would, dude. So you would say that identity statements that are allowed in classical logic they don't have to be like following Leibniz's law. They can be like impure relative identity.
Yeah, they can be relative identity. The capitals will too.
Wait, so okay, relative identity with relative identity. There's no problem with that in classical logic at all.
Yeah, the capitals will.
Okay, that's great. That's great. Okay.
What?
Does RI
Are you
okay, I'm
stupid?
just saying. Just
You
let
know
me
what? Do
move
you know
on
what
to my
relative
next
identity
question.
means?
Dude, oh my gosh, yes I do. I know what relative identity means. Okay. Does an equivalence relation is that all that's needed for like classical identity or to satisfy Leibniz's law of indiscernibility?
Yeah, can you like stop stuttering and speak slower?
I didn't stutter. Like
Yes, you
did
did.
you not track, bro? Okay, just to be clear, right? So I'll repeat again. Within classical identity, is an equivalence relation all that's needed to like satisfy identity?
In what way? Formal, materially.
Dude, okay.
Because yeah, formal
When
identity.
I
and material
say,
identity.
oh my gosh, yeah, I mean, let's see, we can just cast it out
Yeah,
to
can
just
you
be
answer it?
material
Can
identity.
you answer my clarification?
Yeah, material identity. I just answered it.
Yeah, so material identity is relative, not formal.
What?
Because that which is formal is absolute. That which is material is relative.
Dude, what is it? This guy is answering something I didn't ask him.
Are you stupid?
My
You just-
gosh.
Are you stupid? You just referenced classical identity and absolutes. Are you stupid?
No, I asked you rather. Hold on, can you repeat the question this time?
Classical identity. So when we're talking about classical identity, right? This has
Mm-hmm.
to do with indiscernibility or something, right? So if an x and y are indiscernible, you can distinguish them. That means they're going to be absolutes.
Okay, great. So when you take
But-
it to like satisfy an equivalence relation, you're gonna say it satisfies identity in Leibniz's law.
Yeah, in the formal sense, not the material sense.
Okay, wait, what? Okay, great. So you're saying yes. It
Yeah,
can.
yeah, formal identity, material identity, you goof.
Okay, I'm moving on to my next question. Okay,
Yes,
how can you
it's
derive
valid
tritheism using Leibniz's law if it doesn't distinguish hypostatic versus essential
But the-
properties of the divine essence?
Okay, say your question slower. You keep stuttering.
Oh my gosh, bro. Okay, how can you derive tritheism using Leibniz's law if it doesn't distinguish hypostatic versus essential properties of the divine essence, which are the commitments of an internal critique to my view?
Yeah, in your internal critique, you do relative identity. I never had to use indiscernibility. I never used transitivity on you.
Okay, so wait, hold on. Are you saying to me within like the statements or like my view or my paradigm, internally it doesn't entail a contradiction?
No, internally contradiction because relative identity is three gods.
Okay, you make that claim, but in your 1AC you didn't give an argument for it. You can make claims and cross-sects, but you didn't justify it in any of your speeches.
Can I respond? Yeah, I gave Cappadocians when Ablablius. You know Ablablius.
Okay, go ahead, man. Go ahead, bro.
Yeah, have you not read on All Three Gods? Right?
And also you lied, right? Because I do hold to Nissa. I don't
Yeah,
know why
so-
you lied in your like rebuttal period, but I do hold to Nissa.
I was going strict on the Latin tradition.
I hold to
right?
all the Cappadocians.
Just 1 second. When I'm arguing with a Thomas, I'm gonna hold to strictly the Latin fathers. Okay. So if you hold if you hold this, no problem. My pleasure. More worse on you. So when Nissa and Basil, right? So when they were using relative identity, they held to immanent realism because when you have relative identity, you have composition between essence and
Okay, can you give the hold on? Can you give the argument that relative identity is gonna mean immanent realism?
What? No, they held to immanent realism because of relative identity.
Yeah, what's
To
the argument that
propositions.
relative identity is gonna lead to immanent realism?
Oh, are you hearing me? The Cappadocians.
Dude, you're not asking the damn questions. I am.
Listen.
I'm asking you the damn question.
Listen. You're
What
not
do you
letting
mean?
me
Listen
speak.
to what? You're supposed to
letting me
respond to my
speak.
questions.
The
Okay, just to be clear,
Cappadocians-
guys, I asked
Zero.
him
Say
a
what
simple
you gotta say
question.
again. Say what you gotta say
Yeah,
again.
let me
Okay,
say-
how can you derive tritheism if you don't distinguish hypostatic versus essential properties in your formulation of impure relative impure relative identity?
Okay, now I'm going to answer your second question, okay? The first question is how do you entail immanent realism from relative identity, okay? I'm not saying that you have to hold immanent realism. The Cappadocians, they saw that if you held to relative identity of universal protective relations and composition between essence and existence, they would hold to relative identity to encounter composition. Now, if you do not believe that relative identity can encounter composition, you have to hold to immanent realism because now you're going to say that they're going to exist universal.
Okay, just to be clear, I don't know why he's like making inferences on my cross-examination, But you just saying I have to doesn't demonstrate like an entailment or an inference rule. Okay, just give the inference rule then. Just demonstrate it using an inference rule.
Modus ponens.
How does it follow modus ponens? Can you give the formulation?
Yeah, because for example, if P reaches, if you hold.
No, I know what modus ponens is. I want to know how this context is gonna follow, and so like you can formulate it into modus ponens.
Yeah, we speak Socratic method around here. But anyways, right?
Dude, okay, bro, I don't use the Socratic method. Okay, I'm asking you the question.
What does it mean to not use
Dude,
Socratic
I'm not
method?
doing this meta with you, bro. I'm not doing this meta. Just answer my question.
This is the
Guys,
Socratic
just to be
method,
clear,
right?
oh my gosh, I'm gonna move on to my next question since you didn't answer it.
Cross-examination is.
Dude, stop spurging out. Dang.
Let me adjust what you said.
Oh my
You
god.
have,
Okay,
no,
just to be
it's,
clear.
you're not answering that specific
Ahmed,
question.
you're
You're
shut up,
asking
please.
questions.
Dude, oh my gosh. Okay, what I asked him for like the third or fourth time is why use Leibniz's law if it can't account? Or sorry, I'll just ask my next question.
Oh my days, this is terrible.
Why are you using Leibniz's law if it can't account for non-substantial predicates and non-essential predicates? Are person and nature the same sort of?
In what way? Nature, which means feces, can mean two things, right? For example,
What?
let me knock, right? Because feces, which is Greek for nature. For example, Saint Cyril of Alexandria, he said, "Mia feces toi toles carmine." He thought feces was the hypostasis. But after Chalcedon, they thought feces was to be something by nature, something abstract, holds qualities. Okay, so the word nature is going to be equivocal. It can be a principle of motion. It can be an essence. It can be different stuff. So you have to univocalize it.
Okay, great. I'll move on to my next question.
What?
If
Can
you
you
hold
univocalize
to-
it? Can you univocalize?
Okay, I asked the question. Like,
Univocalize
it's
it.
my cross
He
exam.
said he's gonna move on. He said he's moving on to his next question.
Exam, bro. Okay. So I'm gonna move into an epistemic issue. If you hold to Leibniz's law, how do you know that for any x and y, if x is identical to, oh my gosh. Okay, so that's great, but I'm gonna still ask the question. So you can like say you don't, but that's great. So
No,
if you hold
but
to
you're
Leibniz's
actually
law,
gonna do
oh
it.
my gosh, stop cutting me off. If you hold to Leibniz's law, how do you know for any x and any y, if x is identical to y, then x and y have all the same properties?
Yeah, because you have a law of identity of inseparability, then you have the inseparability of identity. Do you know the difference?
How the hell does that answer my question?
Yeah, because
And you just said you don't hold to it.
you told me to. You
Why are
told
you-
me to respond
now you're
to it.
stuttering, bro.
You told me to respond to it, even if I don't.
Okay, I'm just gonna move on since you're
Oh
not answering my
my
question.
days.
Okay,
So listen,
did you?
let me answer.
Okay,
Let me
stop cutting me off. I'm gonna finish. Okay, so
I
did you?
answered.
Oh my gosh, can you respond to my? Okay,
Bryce, let me answer it. Bryce, let me answer.
are
Okay.
my
You've been
priors?
answering.
Sorry, dude. Please stop cutting me off. Okay, do I have credence at 70%? In my priors using the formulation I used in my 1 and C.
Yeah, you keep stuttering. I don't know what you're saying.
Are my priors justified with a credence of 70%?
Are your pliers?
Using Bayes' rule in Bayesian updating with the evidence.
That's not relevance.
What do you? So you're not gonna answer the question.
No, that's not relevance. I don't understand relevance.
Okay, so that literally was my argument.
No.
In
no.
a Bayesian
What's
sense, I have justification for my priors via the evidence.
You mean priors, not pliers. Priors.
I said priors the first time. Okay, I'm not gonna let you like do this meta stuff, but okay, he's not gonna answer that question. So you say I can't use the the S5 axiom. Why can I use the S5 axiom when I'm invoking possibility, necessity, or what obtains in a possible world?
No, you can use the S5 axiom as an axiom.
Okay,
I'm not
great.
arguing
Hold on.
I'm not arguing modality. That's the
Hold
thing. I
on,
said
buddy.
it's irrelevant.
If I can use it.
I told
so
you
then-
it's
hold on, great.
irrelevant.
Dude, stop.
It's irrelevant.
Can you mute this guy? Okay.
I'm not arguing
Okay, just to be
modality,
clear,
fuck
right?
this.
In a possible world, oh my goodness. So, like using the S5 axiom, I showed you that if something is possible, then it is necessary. You agreed, right?
No, you said if something's possible, it has to be possible in all possible
No,
ways.
I said if something's possible, then it's necessary, right? Using the S5 axiom, right?
No, so that's fast.
What do you mean? Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay, great.
Why are you going crazy?
So
Stop
that
digging the table.
now no. Okay.
So S5.
So is it metaphysical? Hold on. Dude, it's my cross exam again. Okay. So is it metaphysically possible the divine essence necessarily subsists as three persons?
What?
Is it metaphysically possible that the divine essence necessarily subsists as three persons?
What do you mean by that?
You don't know what subsistence is, and after you've been yapping about Aquinas,
Subsistence or subsistence?
I said subsistent.
Subsistence, not subsistent. Subsistence.
Yeah, because there's multiple persons subsisting. I don't know how.
Okay,
It's
now-
plural,
now
obviously,
listen.
because there's multiple persons subsisting.
Great. Now the thing is equivocal. Is it
Oh
relative
my
or absolute
gosh,
subsistence? There's two
Dude,
different-
why the hell are you asking me a question during my cross exam?
You're being equivocal, you goof.
Okay, wait, I'm being equivocal? Oh, I sure hope so, because it's gonna turn on the context what's gonna be referential.
What?
You don't know what referential terms are? You don't know what it means to pick out
No,
something?
you have like a cock in your mouth. You can't speak properly.
Okay.
You thought that was rhetoric, dude? Like,
Well,
I guess
now,
I asked
now
my
I
next
have to
question.
kick him because we're on TikTok. So if you want to come back up here,
Oh,
you can go ahead.
Can you
and-
pause the time? Can you find the time at like 5:42? I think.
You can't say that on TikTok, bro. Oh my
I
gosh.
forgot to. I thought you were on.
Okay.
You know, we're supposed to-
I'll just
Go ahead,
ask a few
Zero.
more of my questions. Is it metaphysically possible that God is triune?
No.
What's the inference rule for that?
I'm using Socratic method.
What the hell does that have to do with the inference rule?
Yeah, because we're doing Socratic method, you goof.
What
We're
does
doing-
again? That didn't add
we're
any
doing
clarity when
Socratic
I
method
ask you what does that have to do with the inference rule. You just repeated that you use the Socratic method.
as we're speaking, you goof, so you can reject it.
Okay,
So I'm just
what does
trying
that have to do with the validity of an
listen,
inference?
be-
Dude,
because
stop cutting me off,
Trinity-
dude. Oh my
listen,
gosh, bro.
listen,
Oh my
listen.
gosh, this is ridiculous, bro.
Trinity,
I'll go to my
because-
next question. I'll go to my next. Okay, do you hold to JTB? Do you hold to JTB?
That's not relevance.
Dude, answer the damn question. Do you hold to JTP in your account of knowledge?
It's not relevance.
Okay, what account of knowledge do you hold? What's your epistemic
We're not
framework?
talking about epistemology.
Yes, we are.
No, we're not.
That is a valid
Dude, it's
question to
literally-
ask, Ahmed.
Oh my god.
You need to answer that question on your theory of knowledge because it's part of his
I just
critique.
want to know how you account for knowledge when it's literally like that's literally my argument. It was one of my main arguments.
Please answer
So
his
wait, hold on.
question.
If it's not about epistemology, then you have to say you don't know that the Trinity leads to three gods, right?
No, we do sortals. We count, enumerates.
What? Okay, so how do you know that? How do you know that?
Yeah, because we count how many substances we have.
Okay, that doesn't give me any information on your account of knowledge. What account of knowledge do you take?
Because a sortal is that.
Like
which
for
is-
example, I'm a contextualist, so I would view the context to what governs the epistemic standards by which I know something. So if the context the standards for the context of my knowledge is high, then I can say I know something.
Yeah, it's not relevant because I don't think that's.
Okay, so you
one,
can't
two,
tell me your
three,
epistemic
four, five,
accounts
six.
for how the
Because-
Trinity is three gods.
Because
Or I'm going to move to my next question.
because-
Would you say doxastically,
Wow.
under high epistemic standards, that an agent is rational in believing the Trinity?
Okay. Is it doxastical, which just means do you believe that?
Dude, that's okay. Don't try to like.
I'm
Go ahead,
just
go ahead.
translating for
I don't want
audience.
to waste my time, bro.
You use words that
You don't have to translate for the audience. I want to answer to my question, right?
No, because
So
because the
is
audience,
it
that's
using
translating.
using the ideal rationality context, or sorry, not context, standard for epistemic norms? Would you say an agent is idealistically rational in believing the Trinity?
What?
Okay, so are you gonna answer using using ideal rationality? Like, so I would just say like for agent as for proposition P, if there's a rational reason to believe the proposition that you should believe it.
What are you talking about? Depends. If you say of Asian has promotion from his intellect
Oh my
towards
gosh,
formality.
bro. So you didn't answer my question. I'm
I answered a question.
Okay,
because-
okay, that's great. Okay, under an epistemic norm, what if a proposition is metaphysically coherent and it best explains the divine revelation, would that either be one probability raising for my credence, or would it lead me to believe something, or give me good reason to believe it,
Yeah, I don't even know what you're
or
saying.
know it?
You're making up words you don't know how to put together.
Yeah, I told you if it's metaphysically coherent, would you take the conjunction with divine revelation
Okay.
for an
I'ma put
idealistically
you to the corner.
guided
Let's
rational
put this in
agent? Would you
English
ought to
words
believe?
now.
Oh my gosh, bro.
Let's put this.
Okay, I'm just
simple
gonna
English.
move on to my
No,
next
no, no, no,
question
no,
because
no,
he
no,
won't
no, no,
answer
no, no,
it.
no. Keep this question. I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna embarrass
that's
you
great,
if you
bro.
simple English.
All right,
All you're asking.
dude. Oh my gosh, bro.
All you're
Dude, I don't
asking
want you to
is how to
rephrase my question. Don't rephrase my question.
You're such a
Okay, I'm gonna
slow
ask you again.
Answer the question
Oh
directly,
my
please.
gosh, this is like insufferable, bro. Okay, if the rationality is an epistemic norm, or do you even hold to like what epistemic norms do you hold to?
I'm on epistemology.
What? I didn't hear that. You what on epistemology?
Yeah, I'll have my own epistemology. I create my own epistemology.
Okay,
And,
what is your epistemology?
you have to give me an example.
Oh, you don't know what dude. Okay, epistemology is just gonna be the account of knowledge.
Yeah, I know. You have to give me an example of a situation, and you have to.
An example? Okay. Oh my gosh, I did. I
No,
literally
so-
did in my
so-
opening
so-
statement, or sorry, not my opening statement, my 1 and C.
Now listen.
Okay, let me.
When I
Okay, dude,
create
I don't want you to
my
waste
own
my time. Okay,
epistemology-
but since you can't, dude, please,
I've
just
answered your
don't speak
questions.
over me, bro. Our Bayesian, okay, our Bayesian prior is gonna be probability raising.
Pliers? You mean priors?
That's what I said. Oh my god.
You said priors, bro.
He's a pliers.
Oh
No, he
my
didn't.
gosh! Answer the
is
question, bro.
rhetoric.
Our Bayesian prior is probability raising.
What?
Oh my gosh, bro.
Are
Our
you
Beijing priors probability raising.
Okay, is Beijing priors probability?
That's not what I said. I said Beijing. I said Beijing. Dude, are you seriously doing this right now, bro? Just answer the question. Are they probability rising?
Yo, I don't even understand what you're saying. You keep stuttering and you can't.
Oh
you have
my
like
gosh,
words.
dude, he's running away, bro.
Running away.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you a new question. Do you hold to
okay,
JTB
okay.
again? Okay, do you hold to JTB?
Yeah, same answer is irrelevance.
Okay, so you're not gonna answer the question.
I've answered your question's relevance.
Dude, I asked you about epistemic norms. I asked you about the S5
not
axiom. I
talking
asked you about
epistemology.
Bayesian
We're not
epistemology
talking about-
and
we're
probability
not talking
rising priors.
All right, we're done with
Okay.
that. So now we're gonna move into the 5-minute closings, and then I'm leaving. Go ahead, Ahmed.
Yeah, this was like one of the most embarrassing debates ever. We were supposed to go on StreamYard first, so we have slides and everything and talk normally. But Zero wanted gifts, and he told me like he wanted me to go first because he doesn't know if he should hold to relative identity or instability. So we went to Discord, and then he didn't show up too. So I posted a story he ran, and then we went to TikTok. So we had to grab him to get the debates. But the thing is, Zero, I'm gonna give you some advice here today. Whenever you have a debate, I know it's your first time, but when you're having a debate, you don't get to speak like a sophist because you're not speaking to me. You can speak to sophist to me how you want, but you're speaking to the audience. So you're not supposed to win me, you're supposed to win the audience. That's why you speak simple, because the people here, they range in knowledge from high to low. There's people who are philosophers, who are theologians to biblical hermeneutics, But alhamdulillah, I brought 4 arguments today. Wallahi, you have not refuted a single one. My first 2 arguments was regarding the individuation of acts, where I presented personal incommunicability with communication with communication idioms. My second argument was personal incommunicability with proper intention about the individuation of rationality. From these 2 arguments, we entailed that you have 3 agents and 3 minds. Then we showed that the begetting of the Son was conceptual, logical, and not excremental. Then we showed that the Father, being paternity, to be deceived for the Son is not necessary, it's only contingent, meaning the Father doing paternity was causally inefficient. This conscious what Aquinas said. Now, I brought you my last argument regarding the infinite regress that essence is attributes by transcendental relations. You cannot refute that. You cannot refute infinite regress with the essence attributes because this is the ADS's error of transcendental relations. Keep in mind, bro, this dude said he held to ADS, Thomistic position, but then he told me he held relative identity. There's no relative identity when it comes to Thomas Aquinas, right? There's gonna be straight ADS, no potentiality, right? Because that which is over to ADS is transitive. Now, alhamdulillah, this is gonna be another victory. I got him to concede to all my points. I got him to concede that the Father does not have to be paternal to be distinct from the Son, right? That means the Father being paternal is causally efficient. He could not tell me the transcendental relation of how mercy and power could be identical to the essence, because in essence these attributes to describe it. The essence is the whatness, the attributes are the qualities that describe the essence, okay? And saying that, the essence is described to the attributes, okay, the qualities. If you're saying the qualities are the essence, that's going to be infinite regress, okay? I showed you have 3 minds by the ablative and the genitive case that's regarded by Saint Albert Magnus and also Saint Riccardi, and also the genitive case by Saint Boetius, from Boetius, sorry, the Western philosopher. And concluding that, right? Not only have you been a sophist this entire life, I know this is your first debate. You're new to philosophy. I understand that's you learn these philosophical words and modal scope and all these words you don't know how to use, and you're trying to look smart. I'm talking from experience, buddy. If you're trying to go blah, 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 no one's going to understand you. Okay, no one can talk notions. And Ibn Taymiyyah said in Majmu' al-Fatawa that the people, philosopher, they do not impress the people by their notions, but they impress the people by the vocabulary, and it's called sophistry. Okay? It's been a pleasure. This was honestly, uqsum billah, this is one of the most waste of times. The reason is I brought Zero to debates because he's been using words he doesn't know how to use. Like, for example, he's conflating modality with ontology. He's conflating epistemology with ontology. He has no idea how relations work. He doesn't even know the Thomistic Trinity and how it works, right? But yeah, I gave you 7 quotes about Aquinas, 4 quotes by Saint Albert Magnus, teacher Aquinas. I gave you Capriolis, who rejects your notion. I gave you Thomas Cajetan, that rejects this notion. I gave you Ferrarinus, who rejects your notion. I gave you Antonio Gordon, who rejects your notion. And Francisco Suarez is the only one who aligns with nominalists in this nice distinction between paternity and the act itself. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Ya sophist, kafir, murtad, kufar.
Alrighty. Go ahead, Zero. You have 5 minutes.
I'll
and then we're
start.
done.
Okay. First, I want to thank Bryce for hosting this. Even though we had kind of problems getting this together, I'm actually glad we had this debate. I think I was able to perform and showed I was more prepared side of the debate. But I wanted to thank a lot of people in my closing statements. I want to say thank you to Gon, Briggs, Kimber, Lance, Respects, Ninja, Prime, 19Z, Lorenzo, Gingy, Lewis, Methodist, Luciano, Astro, Milton Topins, Othro, Fisherman, Breeze, Jerome of Antioch, Prime, Ray, Dr. Wisdom, Mitch, Jackson Hood, Thomas, Gabe, Wayne, Simplicity, Metalogic, Brenton Rooter by Jesus, Just, Shekhana, Rumi, Copa, Mila, Christ is Lord, Fantatico, Lucina, and Atomy of Physitism, Ambroses, Hero Son, Benjamin, Trinitarian, Origin, Rick, and Alma Kills, and also the people who also give to me. Thank you very much. God bless all of you guys. I also want to point out on the case, he didn't respond to my case arguments at all. He said epistemology doesn't matter. Invoking modality in metaphysics doesn't matter, which is the entire topic, because he didn't give a formal argument against impure relative identity at all. He just gave me a pop quiz on Thomistic Aristotelian terms, which literally the only thing that I didn't answer for him was what a transcendental relation would be. And again, I didn't even he gave 4 different views from Aquinas' own definition in literally the Prima Pars 29, Article 2, Reply to Objection 1 and 2, which is the definition I told him I held to at the beginning. I think he brought up Cajetan, he brought up Albert, he brought up a whole lot of other people in which I don't hold their definitions. He didn't answer my epistemic, if you want to evaluate the debate, I gave you 2 ways in which you could. One being a rationality epistemic norm, and the other one being an epistemic norm, a rationality norm, and the other one being an epistemic norm. So I've given you multiple ways you can evaluate the debate and the winner of the debate. He never responded to my rebutting reason defeater at all. And he says he doesn't hold to classical logic, but that's literally what the LPT is based on. So I would just interpret that to just be a concession, because if you don't hold to classical logic, then there's no problem. I could just invent a logic such as relative identity logic that doesn't have a contradiction. He didn't give a formal contradiction, which I was hoping for, or I was preparing for. All he does is speak Greek and Latin, but that's not that's not even important. But yeah, I think I've demonstrated that my position is a more coherent one. I've given you norms to evaluate it. I've given defeaters that weren't answered. I've invoked the S5 axiom using possibility and necessity. I've also given you, for people who are Bayesian epistemologists, ways to evaluate it on your epistemic framework, giving my position a credence of 70% probability raising. using my priors from both Revelation and councils and church authority. He never answered my CX questions, which is like another topic or another thing. But yeah, overall, I would say this is a great performance, and I'm happy to everyone who showed up and who viewed it. And thank you. Thank you, Bryce, also, again. God bless everyone.
Bryce, we're doing a three questions Q&A for each, and he gets
that was not on the thing, and
Okay, that was not
I
in
am
the
not
structure,
doing
bro.
that shit.
No, just do
Yeah,
Q&A.
I'm not doing that
You don't
either.
wanna do- you don't want to do
I told
Q&A.
you he's inventing stuff, bro. This was not. Oh! I forgot to
No.
say the modal-scope thing.
Wait, yeah, Bryce, we talked
Oh
about it.
my
All right,
God.
no,
Oh,
we did
okay,
not.
that's great, bro.
Yeah, just do.
I'm not.
All right.
No, thank you, bro. I am done. Oh my goodness. Good debate, guys. But the stream's gonna be on my YouTube channel right now if you guys want to go watch whatever that was. All right. I'm gonna go book a trip to Turkey. Absolutely, that's a great idea. In just a second, okay? Alrighty. I'm gonna end this.